Last couple of years, it seems like everybody is talking about transgender people and transgenderism. And I've been wanting to make a video talking about this um, since this issue came up towards the end of well, more like towards the end of the school year in 2015 when the Bruce Jenner thing hit the newspapers. Um, it honestly, this video might be dated by about 2 years, but I think that some perspective is needed. A lot of people, all of a sudden, transgenderism became this huge fad, and a lot of people took on this philosophy that, well, we have to embrace transgenderism, we have to embrace people changing or trying to change their biological sex. We have to embrace all of this. Otherwise, we're unloving. We're intolerant if we don't. And I find that to be a problem. The idea that if you don't accept a woman who believes herself to be a man, or a man who believes himself to be a woman, that this is somehow equated with racism is absurd. And honestly, people took such a jump without even thinking about it. I mean, we're having a society where um, people are just decided to embrace this overnight. Until all of 5 minutes ago, this wasn't a thing. This wasn't anything people were worried about. Yeah, people knew about, this sort of thing. They knew it existed, but it wasn't something that was in your face all the time. It wasn't something that caused this giant political controversy. And honestly, I think that when people are throwing out words like intolerant or saying, oh, well, you're a hateful bigot if you don't embrace a man wanting to uh, mutilate his body, wanting to castrate himself, wanting to make himself, wanting to imitate a woman in his physical form, get plastic surgery to try to make himself look like a woman, and get hormone treatments that cause cancer. If you don't embrace all of this nonsense, then you're somehow unloving. And people didn't even take the time to think about it. They didn't take the time to sit down and say, is this really a good idea? Is this something that's really healthy? Is this something that's really is helpful to this person? So people on the left, now I apologize to say it like this, but there's not really any other way to say it. At least this is the simplest way to say it. People on the left are using people like Bruce Jenner as political pawns. Whereas the proper thing would be to sit down and say, hey, is this healthy? Is this sane? Is this proper? And people didn't really do that. It just suddenly became the new fad. It suddenly became the new champion of social justice. It became the new champion cause of social justice. And this is really a problem. I remember just a couple years ago, there was videos going around the internet of this case. I want to say it was in Texas, but I don't think it was. I think I'm just putting it in Texas in my mind by default. There was a young man who decided that he was a girl. And, he's in a high school, or was in a high school at the time. He was 17, he was on the news, and you saw him dressed up, like a girl, but the way he dressed up, it almost looked like a joke. It reminded me of when the boys in my high school would dress up like a girl for Halloween to be funny. It was, the way he was dressing was terrible. It's like, I'm not sure any girl would dress like this. And I know people are going to troll that part of the video, whatever. People are going to split hairs about anything. But I saw this kid, and it's like, this is a handsome young man. He looks good. He's not, and he was very masculine. And he kind of talked with a little bit of a high voice, the way the way men who consider themselves to be gay often talk. But he was very, it's very clear that he's a male. And people talk about, well, gender and sex are two different things. Gender is just a social construct. Well, I mean, if gender is a social construct, then why do you need to have surgery and hormone treatments so that you can imitate the opposite biological sex? I mean, none of this makes any sense. The entire thing is crazy. And it's out of control. I mean, nowadays, they're having it where in some countries, if young children decide that they want to have hormone treatments and imitate the opposite sex, and the parents don't want to go along with it, the child is taken away from the parents as child abuse. There's people as young as 3 years old who are, the parents are like, oh, he's transgender. Or, it's a little boy and they'll say, well, she is transgender. That's insane. Alright, if you don't think that's insane, then you are freaking crazy. You have lost your mind if you don't think this is a problem. Alright, it's a 3-year-old little boy. He barely even knows what boy and girl means. Alright, seriously, look, at 3 years old, I threw a washcloth on my head and went to my cousin's house and said, I'm Gregory's friend Heather. Now, I wasn't transgender. I didn't have gender dysphoria. It was just that this was my way of having imaginary friends. So, it was my way of saying, okay, I wanted to build myself up, so I would go imitate I would go pretend I was another person and be like, yeah, Gregory's so cool, he's so nice, Gregory is the best. And then I would come back and be me, and then hoping that other people would praise me as well, saying, oh, well, Heather said you do all these amazing things. Congratulations, Gregory. So, I mean, some kids, they will project, imaginary friends, and I did that too, but I wanted other people to see imaginary friends, so I would dress up as whatever imaginary friend. And there were times I would pretend to be a dinosaur. There's times I would pretend to be a merman. There's times Peter Pan was a big one for me. So for me, dressing up and pretending I'm something else, that's something normal that kids do. I remember also when I was a kid, I was probably 12 years old, and there was this girl who said, I want to be a boy. And I said, well, why? So you can stand up when you pee? And, she said no, she just, thought boys got to have more fun. Nowadays, had she done that, people would be giving her hormone treatments, all this other nonsense. But do you know where she is today? She's a mother. She probably has like 3 kids. And she's very happy being a woman. And also, there's been journals that have published the results that when you have teenage boys, and I'm talking about a biological boy, who considers himself to be transgender, he says, I want to be a girl, the vast majority of the time, they grow out of this as adults. Once they're adults, when they're adults, they report that they no longer have these feelings. Same with homosexuality. So, this idea that you can give hormones to kids so they can try to imitate the opposite biological sex, this is child abuse. And you are a disgusting parent, you are a disgusting human being if you are doing this. I might offend some people by saying this, but if you are doing this to your kids, you need to get your heads out of your butts. They're kids. They don't know what they're doing. A 3-year-old doesn't know anything. Alright, and so don't have them take these hormones that'll very likely they could very well give them cancer. Don't do this. Alright, if you have a little boy, he's a boy. Now, if he grows up, he's 25 years old, and he decides he wants to go pay for surgery, and then there's not much you can do about that. I personally think that gender reassignment surgery should be illegal. The one exception being people who are hermaphrodites, or pseudo-hermaphrodites, that'd be proper term when we're talking about humans. Because these are people who are born where their biological sex, can't be determined, and they decide they want to live as one gender or the other. And that happens almost invariably. People who are intersex end up deciding, oh, I want to live as a man or I want to live as a woman. And there's books about this, there's plenty of stories about this, but this idea from the left that there's 700 billion, that there's more genders than Pokemon is absolutely absurd. And it's damaging. It's something that was made up all of last week. If you go back in time 10 years ago, you tell someone, oh, there's 72 different genders, they're going to look at you like you're an idiot, like they're an idiot. Like you're an idiot. Apologize. And they wouldn't be wrong. And I know I should be more cordial in this video, possibly, but this is out of control. If people love people, if you had any love, if you had any respect, if you cared about a human being like Bruce Jenner, you wouldn't be you wouldn't be affirming mental illness. There was a famous doctor from Johns Hopkins University, and I want to say it was around 2005, he wrote an article, and he said that they stopped doing transgender surgery, even though Johns Hopkins had invented transgender surgery, gender reassignment surgery. He said they stopped doing it because when they looked into the data, when they really did interviews as psychologists, as doctors, they realized that they were participating in madness. This whole identify nonsense, I can go say I identify as a T-Rex. It doesn't make it true. And it's this idea that people want to make words meaningless. Oh, men can have periods too. No, they can't. No, they can't. Well, I mean, here's this person, who has a uterus, a vagina, ovaries, and this person, and he identifies as a man. That's called a woman. And you know what? To completely ignore biology, it's insane. We can't just ignore biology. I know we live in a postmodern society. We live in a society that's rejected God's rejected the Bible and is rejecting science, which I guess isn't surprising considering modern science was founded on Christian philosophy. But that's something I've talked about in other videos and not really something I want to unpack here. But so it doesn't really it shouldn't be a huge surprise that our society is rejecting science as well. But anyway, I guess I can talk about this more in future videos. I don't have to unpack everything here. But please consider what I have to say. If you disagree with me, fine. But you can't say that I'm unloving because you're wrong. I care about people, and honestly, I care about people enough to not turn people's mental illness into a political game and use them as pawns. This is Greg, out.